Okay, so they keep wanting to use me as an example, and I'm getting that one of the reasons for this message is so I'm kind of getting this sense of like moving beyond meditation for me. Um, for me, the kind of cutting edge of where my, let's say, my daily spiritual practice is to start practicing channeling like this every day. I'm like nervous to say that out loud because it's a form of commitment. And I'm feeling like nervous, a lot of tension or just nerves around that. And it's like they're actually wanting me to share a bit about it because they think it could be helpful to some of you. So it's like these recent channels that I've been doing each month for the last 3 months have come so easily. It's like I just, um, I begin and it's like I can't stop talking for more than an hour. And yet, every single time I go to do a channeling practice, I still get very afraid. And um, it's funny because even though it's not live, right? There's like actually nothing to fear. I'm totally safe. Um, and like nothing can even go wrong, right? Because if nothing comes, I can just record later or I can record something else. And yet, nevertheless, I feel literally afraid every time I go to channel. I'm terrified that nothing will come through or that like wrong information will come through that I like might tap into, you know, other energies that, don't have our best interests at heart or whatever. There's all kinds of fears around it. And this was the case even when I was doing my own personal channeling practice when I was kind of learning how to channel, and I used to write in a journal before I started speaking. I would do this practice of automatic writing where you just sort of trust spirit and ask for messages to come through and just keep moving your hand. And every time I would go to do that, literally every single time, I would be afraid. I would resist it. I would feel like nothing's going to come through, or what if I get it wrong? And they're saying this is a common thing to experience when we start to connect with our guide teams, when we start to develop our intuition. That this it's very, very common that we feel this block around, oh, what if I can't do it, what if I get it wrong, I don't know what I'm doing, and resistance because of that. And many of us resist developing a connection to our guides. Even many of us resist even developing our intuition because we're actually resisting that fear that comes up. We're actually resisting that moment of not knowing. Ooh, it's that moment of not knowing. We actually have to go into this unknown. We have to allow ourselves to get quiet. We really have to trust, right? In order to receive intuitive messages. And this is certainly not just about channeling, but they were wanting me to talk a little bit about my channeling practice because that's where the resistance comes primarily for me these days. But they're using it as an example because some of you might experience something like that as you're learning to trust your intuition, as you're learning to work with your guides, as you're learning to open up psychically. It's almost like a necessary part of the process to face that moment of not knowing. Not almost, it is a necessary part of the process. And it requires great trust, and it's okay if we get it wrong too, you know. Um they're saying like open up and let it be playful, let it be an exploration. You don't have to get it right. Um, and it's almost like there is no getting it wrong, because if information comes through, then you come back into your own sovereignty, even as your like regular personality who's maybe not in touch with spirit, but who can still make decisions for yourself, right? Like we still get to decide, am I going to accept what came through, right? Does this feel right? Does it resonate with me? Does this strike me as good guidance or helpful, right? And if not, just because it supposedly came from spirit doesn't mean we need to listen to it. And in fact, we shouldn't if it doesn't resonate, right? So I'm hearing The Cloud of Unknowing. I think that's a book. I don't think I've read it, but for some reason I'm hearing it. And it's, this, as we develop our intuition, it's very foreign, this process of going into the unknown. It's very counter to everything that most of us have been taught, particularly in the West. We've been very much taught to learn, you know, from authority figures, from books and so on, and that our knowledge must be based on that. you know, Very few of us were taught that we actually could go into that moment of silence and not knowing and ask spirit, right? And it doesn't mean we will necessarily always like hear a voice, right? Um, it can begin with simply setting the intention to develop that relationship to spirit, to cultivate a relationship with guides, or even just the desire and intention to receive an answer, to receive guidance, right? So if you have a question, make it a practice to ask that question to spirit, to the universe, to God, to your guides, whatever resonates with you. So it begins with the question, the intention, and the willingness to receive. And what we receive may not always flow through immediately. We have to trust that it'll come through in its own way, in its own time, in a myriad of different ways. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I pulled 3 cards before we got going here, and I pulled the High Priestess first, which is beautiful. This is like more than any other card in the deck. This is about developing our intuition and that ability to receive information. And then the next card, the Six of Cups, is about playfulness. And there's a sort of innocence to it. Be willing to experiment, be willing to play, let it be playful practice. And then the reverse Eight of Pentacles, it's like it doesn't have to be perfect, right? We develop our craft through working on it, through that play. And we can't get it right off the bat. We're not going to build the perfect table or whatever it is that we're doing. We're not going to, receive messages from spirit like very clearly, even necessarily right away. So this is like where to begin. Begin with play, begin with trust, and begin with just that willingness to not know, to open up, to receive. And it's funny because sometimes when I open up in that way, the messages come through very clearly, very obviously. For example, in these astrology channels I've been doing, it's been like I can hear them, and and it feels easy. But there are other moments like today, for example, where it's not like that. It's like I'm still getting little nuggets from them, but it's not so much as a channel in that way where I'm trying to like convey messages from them. It's more like I'm collaborating with them to share some things with you. Um, so I just heard, let it be playful, let it be fun, and let the romance begin. That's such a strange message, but I think it's like this is the kind of thing that can feel impossible, that can feel truly magical. And it's a way of really starting to re-enchant our world in such a tangible way, right? Like this notion of re-enchantment, it's beautiful. And it can mean starting to understand archetypes. It can mean, you know, understanding that everything is interconnected. So it can mean these things that are beautiful and important, but maybe not so obviously magical in the way of like yes, channeling, but any kind of communication between us and spirit. Once we start receiving those messages, that's like real life magic, you know? And they're wanting us to enjoy that, right? To not be so serious about it all the time. I think the other reason they wanted me to come on today is because it's like I meditate every day. That's not really a challenge for me, but something like, say, channeling every day or recording like this every day, that does feel very challenging. That feels very cutting edge for me. And they're wanting me to adopt that as my practice alongside all of you. And they're inviting us all into like a quote unquote 30-day challenge together. So I don't usually resonate with that kind of thing. And they're saying like don't use the word challenge, but it's the concept, right? The concept of like together as a community, it can be very powerful to set an intention to do something every day for 30 days. They're saying 40 days. So they're kind of updating this idea of the 30-day challenge to like the 40 days of magic. and and they're saying like it should challenge us though in a way, like not in a like competitive way or an overly difficult or onerous way, but like a gentle push is sometimes needed, particularly if we want to make change in any kind of way. Or in this regard, if we want to develop intuitively, if we want to develop spiritually, practice is required and discipline is required, consistency is required, and a bit of a push, a bit of a challenge is required too. So, this is an invitation for all of us to set an intention to do something every single day for 40 days. And the length of time is less important. So, I know some of you are very busy. But it can be 5 minutes or even less. Like, for instance, you could set the intention to set an intention every morning. It could be as simple as that. It could literally take 30 seconds. It's something you could even do before you get out of bed in the morning. Um, so if you're feeling too busy, even for 5 minutes, but they're kind of saying like 5 minutes is should be reasonable for everyone. Um, And yeah, this is about exploring practice. It doesn't even have to be the same practice every day. Um, so be playful with that too. But it's about doing something every day. So it could be meditation, right? You could work with the meditation that we did last week. You could journal for 5 minutes a day. You could put your feet on the earth in the morning. So it can be like a more embodied practice. It could be a breath practice, literally any kind of practice. It could be a creative practice. Maybe you want to do crafts for a certain amount of time every day. So it's the consistency that is key. And there really is something about doing it together as a group. And yeah, and they're encouraging me to do it too. And they're encouraging me to do this, to actually record something daily. And I'm like terrified to say that out loud because it's like, it feels like I'll have to do it if I say it, but that's the point, isn't it? So it's so funny. So yeah, it would be really cool actually if we were to all share with each other what our intention is. So I'll make a post, or you know what, in I've turned on comments for paying subscribers. So at the bottom of this post, why don't you share what it is that you want to do for 40 days, even if it feels like a bit of a stretch. And it's really important that, if we do miss a day or more than a day, that's okay. It's not about punishing ourselves, right? So we fall off the horse, we get back on, right? It's as simple as that. So there's no judgment, there's no punishment. Um, it's playful, it's intentional, but it's the setting the intention is very potent and powerful. Okay, so I think that's it. And for me, it's like often I come and I do these channels and it's like 2 hours and it's really intense. It's very emotional. I'm often like dripping in sweat by the end. I don't know what it is about channeling, but it can feel very like bodily intense. I don't think that's proper grammar, but you understand what I mean. It can feel very intense in that way. Um, Whereas this wasn't even really a channel. And it's also interesting that this is later in the day than I normally would do this, but it's just that sort of gentle, doable stretch, right? That they're encouraging me to do and that they're encouraging you to do at the same time. And so this channel didn't feel like one of those really intense ones. It wasn't even really purely a channel. But it's the practice of showing up, right? Even if it feels like for instance, right now, a part of me is like, but I showed up to channel and I'm not channeling, and they're like, well, you are. It's just not, it's a different kind of channel. And and that's okay. And it doesn't have to be perfect and it doesn't have to look a certain way, right? Just show up. Just show up and play and be open to receiving. Okay. So that's it for me. I'm signing off for today. Um, Please share your practice and your intentions in the comments. Take care, everyone. Bye.